roll.
But I'm a player and there's no more women riding for me. I avoided Maury, I got 2 jets. If I can't make it through for them, then I'm useless. Sit down that roof, Chris, with a couple bosses. After the war, just to count our losses. It's not many. You see a smile on my face, but I'm not friendly. Gone on my waist, sipping white Henny. I just hope this shit go right. Living in the dark, you don't know light. Gotta got my heart with my bow tie. Waiting on this war in my whole life. I just hope this shit go right. Living in the dark, you don't know light. Gotta got my heart with my bow tie. Living in this war in my whole life. My whole life. It's so melodic. When I be dropping this ebonics, this ghetto phonics, it got me on the level supersonic. My bomb atomic, and you know where you can find me. Somewhere probably folding this paper origami. My name is pure as the Dasani. My wave is like a tsunami. I went from 0 to 100, feeling like Ricky Bobby. I made a deal with the Reaper. Got a couple wives, they some keepers. Talk a lot of shit, but you can't walk a mile in my sneakers. Bitches go to Miami, come home with change features. Now she got a BBL, her ass fatter. Trying to show up all them niggas that laughed at her. Now when they see her, they only wanna fuck her. They just wanna touch her, they don't wanna cuff her. They just wanna come and kick it with her like a punter. Turned her to a runner, now it's all aboard the train. Fenty on her face, but it's not concealing the pain, it's a shame. So I'm in the hood like some rap snacks. I know niggas kill you and your mama for a scat pack. Dark tint, matte black, they do it for half that. Had you like 90s Missy in a fucking trash bag. I'm from Philly, we don't do bank accounts, just cash app. I spit a verse and I just watch the time slow. This that guy flow, this that shit that rappers die for. This that uncut Tahoe Wall straight from Pablo Escobar. I be at the bar like Moscato. They think it's effort, but no, this that block work. Make the countermeasures, take pleasures, making an op hurt. Light is in the sky, cause every verse is a concert. My mind work at speed y'all can't fathom. Listen to the words of a champion. It can't, the streets need another anthem. I just hope this shit go right. Living in the dark, you don't know light. Gotta got my heart with my bow tie. Waiting on this war in my whole life. I just hope this shit go right. Living in the dark, you don't know light. Gotta got my heart with my bow tie. Living in this war in my whole life. My whole life.
Backstage. On the table.
I ain't finna tell you how I got away with this shit.
If I'm more, right, that's good, bitch. She look good, but hang with dumb bitches. Tell her I'm way too fly for one sister. And then she leave a priest, I won't miss her. Won't put a ring around it, oh, no, no, no. Bitches for the street like basketball goals. I always knew she'd let that lane hit her. Won't get a cent from me, I ain't simple. Bitch, now I ain't gon' work it out. I ain't regular out. Now I ain't gon' work it out. I ain't regular out. You a civilian out. Nah, failure out. I ain't gon' work it out. Cause I ain't regular out. I ain't regular out. You's a regular out. Took that bitch back. And she done fed you out. Look how you living out. You look scary out. Can't fuck that bitch right. Cause she be getting nailed out. You won't forgive her, ain't it? You wanna love it, don't you? Just know that love ain't for you. It's for the world, homie. I got some real homies. We don't pretend, homie. ISUPK, 1 West, we kicking field goals. Let that bitch lead, ho. She got them D's, though. With a little steak and ass pussy, she be going beast mode. She HIV, ho. You a dirty ass skeet, ho. Don't get that shit up out your chest, bitch. Say what you gonna do now, what you gonna say now, what you gonna do to me? It is UPK, I'm shot too deep, bitch, better Google me. I put these girls all in my training camp like I relieve. I say what I do and I do what I say, bitch, what the fuck you mean? If I'm more right, that's good business. She look good but hang with dumb bitches. Tell her I'm way too fly for one sister. And then she leave a priest, I won't miss her. Won't put a ring around it, oh, no, no, no. Bitches for the street like basketball goals. I always knew she'd let that lane hit her. Won't get a cent from me, I ain't simple. Bitch, now I ain't gon' work it out. I ain't regular out. No, I ain't gon' work it out. I ain't regular out. You a civilian out. Nah, failure out. I ain't gon' work it out. Cause I ain't regular out. I get paper, bro. Got my standards up. You a munchkin out. Catching these out. Check my favorite out. I'm a player out. These niggas top block. Took your lead out. You shouldn't be worried about these broke ass bitches. And don't compare yourself to simp ass niggas. Had to shine a lot of these desperate ass women. Cause they be tripping hard, acting like they different. But a bit be basic, bit be horn and bit be naked, drinking. Faking, stinking, and shame, dirty, my bit be vaping. I don't get too fucks about you, I wouldn't have put no baby in you. Bit be saying they got that paper, look, that neck be itch. Done caught the penalty, and my energy got me feeling me. Ice hitting on them, these diamond teeth that's into me. And I'm getting right, and I'm stacking up, and I'm getting to it. And these niggas hate, but they can't touch, cause I'm bulletproof. If I'm more right, that's good business. She look good, but hang with dumb bitches. Tell her I'm way too fly for one sister. And then she leave a priest, I won't miss her. Won't put a ring around it, oh, no, no, no. Bitches for the street like basketball goals. I always knew she'd let that lane hit her. Won't get a cent from me, I ain't simple. Bitch, now I ain't gon' work it out. I ain't regular out. No, I ain't gon' work it out. I ain't regular out. You a civilian out. Nah, failure out. I ain't gon' work it out. Cause I ain't regular out.
Don't have messed up, no. Bad news is to beat your home, nigga. Yeah. Go on, get on that ass real quick one time. 144, baby.
They said you get on, you gon' represent. I said, of course. Soon as they crank that beat, I ride that bitch just like a horse. She about to go dumb, yeah, bitch, me whole guard. You ain't know they call me Obi-Wan. I come with the force. You gon' ride, yeah, of course. Get it lit up like a torch. You either low or this low, so that bitch is either or. Yeah, I know them niggas ain't cut like that. I swear I'm too hardcore. Wait up, let me make a call right quick. I'ma start another war. I was hurting when she left, but I don't care about it anymore. I need a Vaseline like my Nina Puffer Ford. Took a Zach, watch the dark. Matter of fact, like a dart. Any problem, let them come. We gon' snatch they soul like Shang Tsung. Put them out of service, keep them tools like Miss Hall.
It's like I think we good. Shalom. Y'all about some y'all shot rock the thumb. Y'all some all the thumb about some y'all shy. So the ISUPK started out of 1 West, 125th Street, Harlem, New York, under Commander General Yohana. We teach the truth about the Bible. We teach that Blacks, Hispanics, and North American Indians are the chosen people of God, and our oppressors are the devil that the Bible speaks of. Now you tuned in, man. Priest, officer of 1,000, Howard ISUPK, Kentucky, man, under Commander General Yohana. And tonight is our Monday night history class. But before we get started, I want to make sure everybody's tuned in to our weekly content. ISUPK Kentucky. Monday night, of course, you got the history class, 9 p.m. I'm with y'all every Monday, Lord willing. Tuesday night, 7 p.m., Brotherhood class. Wednesday night, the podcast, Cry Out, Spare Not podcast, 9 p.m. And Saturday morning, Sabbath service. So Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday night for the podcast, Saturday morning for Sabbath service. Now tonight, as usual, I got some heat for y'all. All right, we're going to talk about the 5 civilized tribes and Oklahoma's historically all black towns. Now, I got the idea for this class because I saw several people get this wrong. All right, just historically inaccurate with their presentation of Oklahoma and the 5 civilized tribes, and specifically who the freedmen were. All right, specifically who the freedmen were. So we're going to get into the 5 civilized tribes, which of course are the Cherokee, Choctaw, Chickasaw, Creek, and Seminole. We're going to talk about who the freedmen actually are, the real identity of the freedmen. We're going to talk about the Bering Strait theory. We're going to talk about Siberians. We're going to talk about a class of people that was called Chinos at one point in time. We're going to talk about the Asian slave trade. All right, but we're going to talk about the 5 civilized tribes, Oklahoma's historically black towns. All right, ISUPK, Kentucky, under Commander General Yohana. We have to understand that Oklahoma is Indian territory. Before Oklahoma got statehood in 1907, it was called Indian Territory. And it was the place where the Trail of Tears ended. All right. The 5 civilized tribes, the Seminole, Creek, Choctaw, Chickasaw, and Cherokee, when we were removed from the South, when the Creek were removed out of Alabama and Georgia, when the Cherokee were removed out of Georgia, the Seminole out of Florida, the Chickasaw and Choctaw out of Mississippi, and parts of Tennessee, when we were forcibly removed out of the South, we ended up in Oklahoma. And at one point, Oklahoma was the blackest state in the U.S. At one point, Oklahoma was the blackest state in the U.S., and now it's one of the whitest states in the U.S. All right. So understand that Oklahoma is Indian territory. For this class, understand that these two terms are going to be interchangeable. All right, so Seminole Wars, 1816 to 1858. We fought the United States Army in an attempt to resist relocation to the West. All right, Indian Removal Act beginning in 1830 meant the dispersal of their people to Oklahoma, Mexico, and Texas. All right, so a lot of people were signing treaties at this time. All right. The white chief, John Ross, who was in charge of the Cherokee at this time, signed a treaty. All right. The white chief that was in charge of the Creek at that time, all right, signed a treaty. All right. But Seminole never signed a treaty with the U.S. While some folks were signing treaties, the Seminole were going to war. The Seminole was putting belt to ass against the U.S. government. All right, 1816 to 1858 fought the U.S. Army in an attempt to resist relocation to the West. The Indian Removal Act, aka the Trail of Tears, began in 1830, meant the dispersal of their people to Oklahoma, Mexico, and Texas. All right, your Seminole Scouts or Indian Scouts were hardly distinguishable racially from the soldiers in the U.S. colored troops. Why? Because the U.S. colored troops had a high amount of Indian soldiers. All right, coming out of Kansas. All right, on your left, that's Indian Scout, Seminole Scout, Sergeant Benjamin July, and the name of the brother on the right, I can't picture it at the moment. All right, so you got your Indian Scouts on the left, U.S. colored troops on the right. The reason the Indian Scouts were not distinguishable from the U.S. colored troops is because the U.S. colored troops had a high amount of Indian soldiers. Let's work. All right, the winter of 1830, the Choctaw began migrating to Indian territory along the Trail of Tears. 1830, the Cherokee were forced to leave their homes and move to Oklahoma, an 800-mile journey that became known as the Trail of Tears. Now, at this time, the Cherokee had a white chief named John Ross. According to history, he was like 7/8 Scottish and only 1/8 Cherokee on his mama's side. All right. Now, this was the man that signed a treaty that gave up all of the Cherokee land at this time, and afterwards, the Cherokee were forced to leave and move to Oklahoma. All right, Andrew Jackson's Indian Removal Act of 1830 required the Chickasaw, along with all other Eastern America, with all the other Southern Slovakia, where they got that from, along with all the other Southern American Indian tribes, to move to Western Territory. The Chickasaw were the last tribe to withdraw to Oklahoma. So your 5 civilized tribes got removed out of the South, got removed out of Georgia, Alabama, Florida, Mississippi, parts of Tennessee. All right, this act also had an effect of reclassifying American Indians as Negroes. All right. This act also had an effect of reclassifying American Indians as Negro. All right, Tulsa's origin began with the removal of the Creek Indians from their ancestral homeland in Georgia and Alabama. Arriving in 1833, the Creek Indians began building the city of Tulsa. Now, Tulsa is where your Black Wall Street is going to come from. All right, the Creek Indians, after they left out of Alabama, after negotiating with the Cherokee over who would settle in the area that became Tulsa, you had the Creek that built the city of Tulsa. All right, the Creek Indians built the foundation of what Black Wall Street would later become. Now, again, Oklahoma at one point was the blackest state in the country. Now, ask yourself this question. In the 1830s, from the 1830s to the 1850s, the so-called 5 civilized tribes, your Chickasaw, your Seminole, your Creek, your Choctaw, your Cherokee, were all removed out of the South. Removed out of Alabama, Georgia, Florida, Mississippi, and Tennessee. And after we were removed out of the South, forced to move to Oklahoma, and now Oklahoma has more historically all black towns than any other U.S. state. So my question is, if the Indians were kicked out of the South and forced to move into Oklahoma, how does Oklahoma have more historically all black towns than any other U.S. state? All right, Oklahoma was destined to be a black state. Freedmen created more than 50 all black towns and settlements in Indian territory between 1865 and 1920. Now, 1865 is going to be important. All right, you have to know chronology when dealing with history. If you don't know chronology, you're going to be all over the place. All right, we're going to talk about who the freedmen are. All right, freedmen is a classification that was invented by the Dawes Commission. All right, the term freedmen didn't exist when dealing with the so-called 5 civilized tribes in 1865. All right, the designation of an Indian freedman doesn't exist until the Dawes Commission. So this time of 1865 is going to be important. All right, among the places of interest is Rennesville, founded in 1903. This community is one of more than 50 all-black towns founded in Oklahoma and one of 13 still in existence today. Muskogee, which is an Indian word, established 1872 as a railroad town city, which ran through Missouri, Kansas, and Texas and traveled by hundreds of families and freighters. Also of interest is the first Kansas Colored Volunteers. which was the first black regiment in the Union Army. I would also draw your attention to the fact that the first cowboys were black men, free and freedmen. We're going to talk about again who the freedmen are. In Oklahoma, driving cattle from Fort Worth, Texas to Kansas City. Between the late 1800s and the early 1900s, 50 all-black towns were established in Oklahoma. These towns were founded by black American settlers who pooled their resources to purchase land and create self-sustaining communities. Now, also understand, this term black doesn't apply yet. All right, this term black doesn't start to be used until the 1960s. All right, this term black does not start to be used heavily until about the 1960s. So when we're talking about the 1800s in Oklahoma, in Indian Territory, understand that black isn't a designation that's being used yet. Again, you have to know chronology when dealing with history. In fact, as early as the mid-19th century, through the turn of the 20th century, black Americans settled over 20 towns throughout Oklahoma, more than any other U.S. state. So again, you have your Creek, your Choctaw, your Chickasaw, your Cherokee, and your Seminole, all being removed out of the South and forced into Oklahoma. And now all of a sudden, Oklahoma is the blackest state in the U.S. These towns became hubs for entrepreneurship, education, and culture. When we think of Oklahoma history, we tend to think of the Sooners, the oil boom, or the birth of Western swing. But one unique feature of the state is its large number of historical all-black towns. All right, most Oklahomans know the history behind the title given to the city of Tulsa, or capital of the world. And remember, Tulsa was started by the Creek. All right, the Creek Indians built the city of Tulsa. And again, Tulsa is where Black Wall Street is going to come from. All right, 1884, the Cherokee passed down a law permitting the organization of a company for the purpose of finding petroleum and thus increasing the revenue for the Cherokee. Over the next 2 decades, Indian Territory would produce more wealth than all of the American gold rushes combined. So, Indians in the South, the 5 civilized tribes, we get removed from the South, forcefully pushed into Oklahoma, and then we struck oil right away. And over the next 2 decades, Indian Territory, aka Oklahoma, will produce more wealth than all of the American gold rushes combined. From 1865 to 1920, again, 1865 is important. All right, Black Americans created more than 50 identifiable towns and settlements, some of short duration and some still existing at the beginning of the 21st century. 1 year after, April 22nd, 1889, the Oklahoma land rush, the Indian Territory population was 258,000, and subsequent land rushes saw the territory's population grow. So we're talking 1889. This event marked the first time non-indigenous people were allowed to settle in what would become Oklahoma. All right, I told you chronology is important. All right, 1889 was the first time non-Indians were allowed to settle Oklahoma. So if 1889 was the first time non-Indians were allowed to settle Oklahoma, then who were these Black folks building towns and cities in the 1860s? If anybody could answer that question for me, if 1889 was the first time non-Indians were allowed to settle Oklahoma, then who were these Black folks building towns in the 1860s? Let that marinate for a second. Let's work. All right, 1835, a treaty between the Cherokee and the Osage Indians created Cherokee Outlet. Reservations existed until 1904 when the lands were allotted and added to Double County. Now, Cherokee Outlet is that little piece, that little small piece of land over the Texas Panhandle. And I heard people get this wrong too. Right, the Cherokee Outlet became part of Oklahoma Territory and was divided into counties after 1893 opening of the Cherokee Outlet for settlement by non-Indians. All right, after 1893 was when Indian Territory got that little piece of land in above that Texas Panhandle. After 1893, it was open for settlement for non-Indians. It had nothing to do with slavery. It was only after 1893 the Cherokee Outlet was allowed for settlement by non-Indians. All right, settlement of Oklahoma's all-black towns are strictly tied to the Trail of Tears, the forced removal of American Indian tribes from the southern part of the country to Indian Territory. Freedmen of the 5 civilized tribes made the journey as well, and all-black towns grew in the Indian Territory after the Civil War. But who are the freedmen? Who are the freedmen? All right, the aim of this pictorial is to demonstrate that the domestic slave trade had reduced ethnic Native Americans to African slaves, and that they too had been freed. Again, freedman is just a term that was created by the Dawes Commission. All right, and the Dawes Commission doesn't come around until the 1890s. Again, you have to know chronology. All right, the term freedman was a term that changed the racial category of indigenous people to African slaves that had to be freed and or receive benefit from emancipation, and by its effect upon the Indian nations to abolish slavery by the subsequent 1866 treaties, and allowed tribal people from Texas and Oklahoma to rejoin family groups. All right, so freedmen are American Indians. All right, freedmen was a term created by the Dawes Commission to change the status of indigenous people and turn them into an African slave. All right, black tribal members were classified as freedmen by the Dawes Commission. All right, black Indians were classified as freedmen by the Dawes Commission. And they were granted 2 million acres of property, the largest transfer of land wealth to black people in the history of the United States. All right, the largest transfer of wealth to black people in the history of the United States happened in Indian Territory. The largest transfer of wealth to black people in the history of the United States happened in Indian Territory. All right, and again, freedman is a classification that was created by the Dawes Commission in the 1890s. So when these folks were building towns in the 1860s, the term freedman didn't exist yet. That's right. And you got B.C. Franklin, Choctaw member who became a prominent Tulsa attorney. All right, again, indigenous people from the South, the Creek in particular, built the city of Tulsa. All right, B.C. Franklin, a Choctaw tribal member who later became a prominent Tulsa attorney, gets his law office in 1910. And you got people like Sarah Rector. All right, born in 1902, Indian Territory. 1907, it was absorbed into the new state of Oklahoma. Under the Treaty of 1866, due to birthright as the grandchild of Creek Indians, born before the Civil War, she got some land out of it. All right, oil was discovered, and it produced the equivalent of $10,000 a day. And she was known as the richest colored girl in the world. All right, her land was equivalent to $10,000 a day. Produced over $10,000 a day. And if you saw the movie about her, I couldn't stand the movie. I couldn't stand this goddamn movie. This little girl was negotiating with this white banker over what she was worth. And they had her father acting like such a goddamn slave. This little girl, this child was negotiating her worth with a grown-ass white banker. And the movie had her father shuffling in the background like some goddamn slave. Couldn't stand the goddamn movie. That's weird. All right, her parents were Joseph Rector and Rose Jackson. And here they go. Rose Jackson, birth date about 1885, Tribe Creek. Is her father, Joseph Rector, born 1880, Indian Territory. Residence in 1900, Creek Nation, Indian Territory. And here's his enrollment card. All right, after emancipation, freedmen, all right, again, the term freedmen was a classification created by the Dawes Commission to turn Black indigenous people into African slaves. All right, now, this is where O.W. Gurley got the idea to move to Oklahoma. Now, O.W. Gurley is the founder of the Greenwood District of Tulsa. All right, O.W. Gurley is the founder of Black Wall Street. And he got the idea to move to Oklahoma by Black indigenous people. All right, O.W. Gurley was once the wealthiest Black man and founder of Greenwood. September 16, 1893, the 25-year-old entrepreneur joined the Cherokee Outlet opening. All right, again, Cherokee Outlet is that small piece of land over the Texas Panhandle, running 50 miles before finally stopping at a plot of perfect grass. Standing on a plot of land with Emma, he staked the claim that would soon become Perry, Oklahoma, one of many towns advertised to Blacks in the new territory. After hearing about the oil, he sold his store and moved 80 miles to Tulsa. He bought a large tract of land on the north side of the Frisco train tracks. On a barren plot, he started to map out a city for upward mobility for Blacks who, much like himself, were looking for opportunity. Other Black leaders had a vision for an all-Black state. Although his dream was never realized, many all-Black communities sprouted and flourished in the rich topsoil. So Oklahoma was supposed to be an all-Black state. In those towns, Black Americans lived free from prejudice and brutality found in other racially mixed communities. Black Americans in Oklahoma and Indian Territory will create their own communities for many reasons. Arthur Tolson, the pioneer and historian of Blacks in Oklahoma, asserted that many Black Americans turned to ideologies of economic advancement, self-help, and racial solidarity. So a lot of these ideologies for Black empowerment, a lot of these ideologies for Black upward mobility, all come from Oklahoma. All come out of Oklahoma. And Booker T. Washington, prominent Black American educator, visited Boley, Oklahoma twice and submitted an article for Outlook magazine in 1908. All right, this is how prominent these all-Black towns were in Oklahoma. For decades, these all-Black towns provided their residents with lives free of racial brutality and prejudice often experienced by Blacks living in racially mixed communities. Black-owned farms, schools, and businesses took root. But what happened? In 1907, Indian Territory becomes Oklahoma, and Oklahoma passed a series of statutes that would become known as Jim Crow. It's a lie. All right, 1911, whites in Ofuskee County attempted to block further immigration and force Black Americans into mixed but racially segregated communities. So, white folks in Oklahoma couldn't stand all Black towns. So I guess they had what was called Black fatigue back then. But white folks in Oklahoma couldn't stand the thought of all Black towns. So what they did was they attempted to, through terrorism, get rid of all Black towns and force us into these white towns, but keep us segregated. To further that, to further stem Black migration into Oklahoma, a similar oath was developed to prevent the hiring of Negro labor. So what happened was, through terrorism, these white folks decided to get rid of these all-Black towns, no different than what happened in Rosewood, no different than what happened in Tulsa. All right, these white folks couldn't stand the thought of an all-Black town. And they tried to force us into their towns, but keep us segregated and then not hire us. Right? The white man is the devil that the Bible speaks of. All right. Now, this is how we ended up in Oklahoma. All right, this is how we ended up in Oklahoma. But what started off the Trail of Tears, what started off Indian removal, was the Second Seminole War. Right, the Second Seminole War was the largest and most costliest conflict in American history. From the beginning, American military leaders recognized the Second Seminole War was unlike any other. Major Jessup, Salakia. All right, Salakia. All right, Salakia. So Major General Thomas Jessup and other U.S. officials saw this as a direct threat to slavery, who took command in 1836. And he said the Seminole Wars was a Negro War. Now, why would he say the Seminole War was a Negro War? Now, my question earlier is if the Indians in the South were forced to leave and move to Oklahoma, how does Oklahoma suddenly become the blackest state in the U.S.? My next question is, why did Major General Thomas Jessup call the Second Seminole War a Negro War? Let's wait. Jessup and other U.S. officials saw this as a threat to the slavery system. The presence of free black communities alarmed plantation owners who feared that enslaved people would flee south. Plantation owners had a fear that enslaved people would flee south. Not north, but flee south, destabilizing the institution of slavery. The Second Seminole War was the longest and most expensive of all Indian conflicts, and it cost the federal government more than $40 billion, more than $1 billion in today's money. It's a lot. All right, so let's get through this now. All right, the Second Seminole War cost the federal government the equivalent of $1 billion today. So the Second Seminole War was known as the Negro War, was the longest and most expensive of all the Indian conflicts, and cost the federal government for over $1 billion in today's money. Now, the descendants of these warriors carried the military tradition to the Mexican and U.S. armies in the 1870s. The ones who settled in Mexico came back to Texas and enlisted as Seminole Indian Scouts. Stationed at Fort Clark, we became renowned for our unmatched tracking and survival skills, serving alongside the Buffalo Soldiers of the 9th and 10th Cavalry. Four of these scouts, Adam Payne, Pompey Factor, Isaac Payne, and John Ward, all got the Medal of Honor. Damn, Slocky. All right, Adam Payne, Pompey Factor, Isaac Payne, and John Ward all got the Medal of Honor. All right, the Scouts were excellent fighters and were active on the border for 44 years. The Scouts played a crucial role in the history of Texas, and that role is imbued with the ironies that haunt so much of American history. We were never given land promise. See, what happened was a lot of our families left Oklahoma in 1850 and moved to Mexico. We were given land in Mexico if we patrolled the border. Now, after 1865, after Juneteenth, the U.S. said, well, look, you can go back to Oklahoma. So a lot of us were stationed in Texas, waiting to go back to Oklahoma. All right, waiting to go back to Oklahoma, but we never got the land in Oklahoma we were promised. So even though we received the Medal of Honor, our families were starving in Texas at the time. But the rations had been cut because the Bureau of Indian Affairs decided there was no such thing as a Black Indian. So we were pretty much living on government assistance, waiting to get the land that was promised to us in Oklahoma. Otherwise, we could have stayed in Mexico, where a lot of our families still live today. But we got the promise from the U.S. government that we were going to get land in Oklahoma. So we held out in Texas, joined the military, won medals of honor. But the Bureau of Indian Affairs said, you know what? There's no such thing as a Black Indian. When the Seminole Scouts were disbanded in 1914, the families moved off the fort and into Brackettville, and from there spread to all parts of the U.S. and Mexico. And Seminole Days, you can still check out Seminole Days in Brackettville, Texas, September 19th. I think it's every third Friday in September. And here goes pictures from Seminole Days. Now, we finna get into people that's been playing Indian. We finna get into people that's been playing Indian for a long time. All right. If your family don't look like this here, they might come from somewhere else. All right. If your family don't look like this here, y'all ain't from here. If your family don't look like this, y'all, you know how white folks play, why don't you go back to where you come from? If your family don't look like this, you ain't from here either. All right. If your family don't look like this, you ain't from here either. All right. During the late 16th and 17th centuries, countless slaves from culturally diverse communities in Southeast Asia journeyed to Mexico on the Manila Galleon. I bet how many people in chat heard that there was an Asian slave trade. There was an Asian slave trade that brought slaves and servants from all parts of Asia into Mexico. Upon arrival, they were grouped together and categorized as Chinos. In time, Chinos in Mexico came to be treated under law as Indians, becoming indigenous vassals of the Spanish crown in 1672. So you have people coming out of Asia on an Asian slave trade, coming into Mexico, and over time, after their servitude was up, they became under law as Indians and indigenous people. The implication of this legal change was enormous. As Indians rather than Chinos, they could no longer be held as slaves. Tatiana Sejas tracks the Chinos' complex journey from the slave markets in Manila, that's in the Philippines, to the streets of Mexico, and from bondage to liberty. Now, following the Mexican-American War, the U.S. gained a vast territory, including California, Nevada, Utah, Arizona, parts of New Mexico, Colorado, Wyoming from Mexico, and a region known as the Mexican Cession. Now, these Chinos, these Asian slaves and servants that became categorized as Indians and indigenous people under law were living in this territory too. All right, living in this territory too. December 25th, 1868, Andrew Johnson issued a proclamation extending a full pardon and amnesty to all who supported the Confederacy, with pardons granted former Confederate officials, military officers, large landowners, and businessmen in the South were free to rebuild their lives after the Civil War. And what did they do? They wanted to bring these Asians into the South. These same Asians that had been here since these areas were under Mexican rule, these same Chino slaves that got indigenous status, you now have former slave owners in the former Confederacy trying to bring these people into the southern states. Southern landowners, anticipating the demise of slavery, began recruiting coolie workers, indentured and exported workers, generally from China or India, common on plantations in the Caribbean. You see, they had slavery in the South, and now they want coolie labor to take its place. So you have indentured people coming out of Asia, different parts of Asia, the Philippines, China, India. And after these people worked off their indentured servitude, they became known as indigenous people under the law. All right, the Manila Galleon trade influenced Native American culture by introducing a large influx of Asian goods like silk, which impacted their art, clothing styles, and even dietary habits. So when you see this, when you see these bright, colorful colors, know that's Asian influence. When you see these bright, colorful, when you see these bright ass colors, understand this is Asian influence. This is Asian influence from former slaves and servants that came to be treated as indigenous people under law. But this is our culture. All right, denim has always been American Indian culture. Denim has always been American Indian culture. All right, when indigenous Americans met Filipinos, a rare interaction of the 16th century. Again, you've had people playing Indian for quite some time. You've had people playing Indian for quite some time. Luzon Indians or Filipinos were part of a crew and landed parties of Spanish galleons and some were among the first documented Asian people to arrive in North America at the beginning of European colonization. All right, this is a Filipino playing Indian. This is a Filipino woman playing Indian. So you had people from the 1600s, all the way up to the present day playing Indian. And the whole time they come from Asia. All right, these were Filipinos that are playing Indian on the West Coast. All right, from 1732 to 1867, the Russian Empire laid claim to Northern Pacific Coast territories in the Americas. See, the Asians aren't the only ones playing Indian. Now, we know about the $5 Indians. We ain't going to talk about them today. We know about them white folks playing Indian. We can see them running the tribes in Oklahoma today. You see white folks. The principal chief of the Choctaw, Gary Batten, is a clear white boy. That is a white man, clear as day, hairline way back to here. But they're not the only ones playing Indian. 1732 to 1867, the Russian Empire laid claim to Northern Pacific Coast territories in the Americas. Russian colonial possessions in the Americas were collectively known as Russian America. From 1799 to 1867, it consisted of mostly present-day Alaska, all the way down into California. So Russia at one point had the Pacific Northwest, from Alaska all the way down to California. The purchase of Alaska in 1867 marked the end of Russian efforts to expand and became an important step in the United States' rise as a great power in the Asia-Pacific region. But Russian colonization led to a mix of European And Asian culture mixed with people adapting, mixed with indigenous people adapting to new conditions. This is what I'm talking about. Does that look familiar? All right. This is not American culture. This is Siberian culture that was brought to the Americas when Russia owned the Pacific Northwest. If you notice, the Indians in the South ain't lived like this. Indians in the South lived in log cabins. All right. You only see this on the West Coast because the Pacific Northwest was once owned by Russia. And that's when you see Siberians coming to the Americas and bring their culture with them. Now, Siberians did come here. They didn't walk across no damn land bridge no 15,000 years ago. But they came here a few hundred years ago and brought their culture with them. Does it look familiar? The precursor of the modern teepee comes from Siberia. The precursor of the modern teepee comes from Siberia. So these people populated the Pacific Northwest from Alaska all the way down to California. And these people have been playing Indian too. So you got white folks playing Indian. You've got Asians playing Indian. You got Siberians playing Indian. All these people here playing Indian. And that TP is part of that Siberian culture. No, they didn't walk here across no damn Bering Strait 15,000 years ago. But a couple of hundred years back, when Russia owned the Pacific Northwest, that's when these people got here. These people got here recently. All right, now what happened? 1893, World's Columbian Exposition brought American Indians and other indigenous people. 1893, World's Columbian Exposition brought American Indians and other indigenous people. These other indigenous people, your Siberians, your Filipinos, your Coolies, your Chinos. All right, these are your other indigenous people that were brought to China to be put on display for the 27 million visitors who attended the fair. The participation of hundreds of indigenous people at the fair created a space where a battle over who would control their representation to the broader world took place. This is when the world was going to decide who and what an Indian is. Now, we already saw the Bureau of Indian Affairs said there's no such thing as a black Indian. We already saw the Bureau of Indian Affairs said there's no such thing as a black Indian. So these other indigenous people are going to destiny swap and play Indian. This battle shaped and foreshadowed the imagery of Indians that the American public would accept for decades to come. All right, the Bureau of Indian Affairs said there's no such thing as a black Indian. But these Chinos, these Filipinos, these Coolies, these Siberians would come here and play Indian. And this is who the world would accept as the American Indian. Then you have the Buffalo Bill Wild West shows. All right, this is where your Native American culture, these TPs or whatever, is going to be put on display for the world to see. All right, this is where these other indigenous people are going to be put on the world stage. Again, the Bureau of Indian Affairs said there's no such thing as a black Indian. You got to go. But these other indigenous people were going to play Indian in these Buffalo Bill Wild West shows. They're going to give you and they're going to give the American public what an American Indian is. And these same skits were adapted to film and television westerns. This is where your Hollywood cowboys and Indians come from. This is where your Hollywood cowboys and Indians come from. And people like this. He was in a commercial back in the 80s when somebody was threw some trash out the car window. It hit the ground. It was a commercial about littering. And you seen this man right here looking at the litter with a tear running down his face. Problem is, Salaki, you got to see this. Salaki, I'm trying to work out the kinks in this new system here. So again, 1893 World's Columbian Exposition brought American Indians and other indigenous people to be put on display. And what's going to happen is this battle shaped the imagery of American Indians that the public would accept. And we already read where the Bureau of Indian Affairs said there's no such thing as a black Indian. So these Siberians, these Chinos, these Filipinos, these coolies would all come in and play Indian. And this would be the image of what an Indian would be for the American public. Then you have the Buffalo Bill Wild West shows. This is where your image of the cowboy and Indian comes from. And this would later be adapted to television westerns. All right, Gunsmoke, The Lone Ranger, all this is going to come out of this. All of these westerns are going to come out of your Buffalo Bill Wild West shows. And this is going to give you the image of cowboys and Indians. You have Iron Eyes Cody. He was in a commercial about littering. And the whole time he's Italian. His family comes from Italy. But these Buffalo Bill Wild West shows would be adapted to TV westerns like Gunsmoke, The Lone Ranger, and give you an idea of cowboys and Indians. So you'd never know the cowboy was the Indian. All right, Hollywood and television tried so hard to give us an image of cowboys and Indians, just so we would never find out the cowboys was the Indians. Here's Bill Pickett. All right, born in Williamson County, Texas, 1870. His family's ancestry was Cherokee. So Hollywood and TV gives us an idea of cowboys and Indians and never told us the cowboy was the Indian. Let's work. Now, this is big. All right, this is big. You have foreigners that have been playing Indian for quite some time. And this is from the 1920s. All right, a new theory of the origins of the American Indian places Negroes as their ancestor. New York Times, 1920s. A theory of the origin of the American Indian places Negroes as their ancestors, explained in a paper by Professor Dixon of Harvard University. So Professor Roland Dixon from Harvard University, he says black folks are the ancestors of the American Indian. Even though the Bureau of Indian Affairs said there's no such thing as a black Indian. Even though Major General Thomas Jessup said the Seminole Wars was a Negro war. Even though when the Indians left the South and got removed to Oklahoma, Oklahoma becomes the blackest state. Even still, when the Seminoles come out of Mexico, getting ready to go back to Oklahoma, fought in the militaries in Texas, the Bureau of Indian Affairs comes along and said there's no such thing as a black Indian. But Professor Roland Dixon said that black folks are the ancestors of the American Indian. Now here comes Professor Boaz. Columbia, Washington, came to the National Museum to oppose him, denying that such a far-reaching conclusion is crazy. So we have a professor out of Harvard in the 1920s that said that black folks are the ancestors of the American Indian. Professor Boaz comes from Columbia and says, no, it's not. That's crazy. That's a reach. But who is this Professor Boaz? Here he is. Franz Boas, a small hat. He was a eugenicist. And we know the eugenics movement became Planned Parenthood. So we have a Harvard professor saying that black folks are the ancestors to the American Indian. Here comes Franz Boas, says, no, it's not. That's a reach. That's crazy. But this small hat had a student named Melville Herskovitz. All right, this small hat had a student named Melville Herskovitz. And Melville Herskovitz wrote a book called Myth of the Negro Past and said that black culture is African culture. So we have a Harvard professor that said black folks are the ancestors of the American Indian. Franz Boas comes along and says, no, that's crazy. You can't say that. That's crazy talk. That's a reach. Franz Boas has a student named Melville Herskovitz. Herskovitz writes a book called Myth of the Negro Past and said black culture is African. So the very same people that's trying to tell you that your grandma was wrong when she said y'all got Indian in your family, the very same small hats that said y'all were wrong, that grandma was wrong, these are the same people trying to make you African. Think about that for a second. When grandma said she had Indian in her family, when grandpa said he had Indian in his family, these were the white folks that came along and said, nuh-uh, y'all are African. Herskovitz was the first prominent white intellectual to declare that black culture is inherently African. Well, my question is, and this is the most important question of the night, what about black culture is African? Since these were the people that came along and told that Harvard professor, when he tried to say that black folks are the ancestors to the American Indian, these people came along and said, nope, black folks is African and black culture is African. Well, my question is, what about black culture is African? See, these are the same people. These are the same people that put in our minds that when grandma talked, we shouldn't listen. Oh, your grandma was dumb. Your grandma couldn't read. Your grandma had a third grade education. You shouldn't listen to grandma. This is where that thought process comes from. But grandma and grandpa was smart enough and had enough sense to own land, to own farms, to own their own home, to raise 15 kids and their grandkids when the parents couldn't get it together. And today we struggle with 2-3 kids and don't own shit. But because we might have a college degree, we think we're better than grandma and grandpa. These were the people that came along and said, no, black culture is African. Your grandma don't know what she's talking about. Your grandma's dumb. She can't read. She ain't no shit. This is where this thought process comes from. This is where this ideology comes from. Then you have these folks come along. A special election held March 3rd, 2007 resulted in the passage of a constitutional amendment that excluded Cherokee freedmen from citizenship. And who passed it? Who excluded Cherokee freedmen from citizenship? Him, Chadwick Smith. Now, how did he get the authority to exclude the freedmen from Cherokee citizenship? Now, we read earlier in class who the freedmen are. The freedmen are black indigenous people who have been building towns in Oklahoma since the 1860s. 30 years before any non-Indian was allowed to even come into Oklahoma. Now in 2007, this guy comes along and said the descendants of freedmen aren't allowed citizenship. So where does he get his authority from? His great-grandpa? A fake Indian? Redbird Smith? Give me a break. Give me a break. This is according to the Bureau of American Ethnology. A considerable proportion of the blood of the Southern Negro of the U.S. is unquestionably Indian. Majority of black folks in the South have Indian ancestry. All right. If you don't want to believe grandma because you're too brainwashed by Pan-Africanism, this is what the Bureau of American Ethnology says. Majority of your Southern black population has Indian ancestry. All right, let's drop that. Let's go to Jeremiah 17:4. And thou shalt, and thou even thyself shalt discontinue from thine heritage. And we've absolutely discontinued from our heritage. Those of us that have American Indian ancestry, we've been fooled by Pan-Africans. We've been fooled by the U.S. government. We've been fooled by the Bureau of Indian Affairs. We've been fooled by the Buffalo Bill Wild West shows. We've been fooled by Gunsmoke and TV Westerns. And we've discontinued from our heritage to the point where we'll believe a Pan-African over what grandma and grandpa said. All right, so let's drop that. So appreciate y'all for hanging out with me, man, soaking up some of this game. Of course, Lord willing, y'all get me every Monday, 9 p.m. All right, Tuesday night Brotherhood class, Wednesday night the podcast, Saturday morning Sabbath service. With that, we'll do one courtesy salute. Shalom, Yahweh B'Shem, Yahweh Shah Barakatham, Yahweh Shemar Thumb B'Shem, Yahweh Shah. ISUPK Kentucky Monday History class is dismissed.
One West.
We set apart, nigga.
They hate it when you up, but love it when you down. Love you when you there, but hate you while you living. Only make a mention when it's beneficial. Oh, you can't keep it solid, I ain't fucking with you. Fuck a fake friend, show is over, close the curtain. Told you that they loved you, laughed at you when you was hurting. One thing about that UPK, this brotherhood for certain. Dress you up in all black, gird you up to put that work in. Same niggas that was on the block putting that work in. Abandon that lifestyle, cause now I know my purpose. Coming from a place where a black man life is worthless. 400 plus years, yeah, living out them curses. I blame the so-called leaders in the churches. Was supposed to save our soul, instead they led us to the hearses. Backstabbed and betrayed by the people you would die for. Your family ain't family, so-called friends switch sides on you. Crackers take a knee on your neck, whisper and die, boy. So I stay strapped with the Kaepernick, that's the firearm. Gotta watch your back, you know them demons out here lurking. If I don't know shit, then I know one thing for certain, look. They hate it when you up, but love it when you down. Love you when you there, but hate you while you living. Only make a mention when it's beneficial. You can't keep it solid, I ain't fucking with you. They hate you when you up, but love it when you down. Love you when you there, but hate you while you living. Only make a mention when it's beneficial. You can't keep it solid, I ain't fucking with you.
I say fuck the fake love and disloyal behavior. Brotherhood is a weapon, but bitch niggas is contagious. Hating your elevation instead of hitting the pavement. Watching your every move and never give motivation. Situational friendships get way with adversity. And these days, just a little bit of your kindness a luxury. I'd rather you keep your distance, be a fuck nigga too close to me. Prefer to fuck with fear niggas than house niggas with notes on me. Get a shirt off my back for devoted niggas with loyalty. I noticed the lack of devoted niggas that's trustworthy if you ain't in no black. Ranked up, I give 2 fucks for free. Death before dishonor is a must. It ain't no choice from me, I'm bred different. Was never one to die, just bullshit, I'm fed different. Fuck all the information out of pulpits, I'm led different. Been taught to follow a code, Israel law, statutes, commandments, freely given, never sold, nigga. Chill.
They hate it when you up, but love it when you down. Love you when you there, but hate you while you living. Only make a mention when it's beneficial. You can't keep it solid, I ain't fucking with you.
Looking out at the St. Louis Indian mounds, keeping history alive. Yeah, priest, hop 'em all, you know how to survive. Wrote 3 books in a single year, the pen is your fire. An author and a priest, rising higher and higher. Remember the black rodeo in St. Louis, dust on your boots. To the Juneteenth event in Dallas, deep in your roots. Eating barbecue in Austin, tasting the smoke and the pride. The Shreveport soul food, keeping the spirit alive. You're a historian and author, a priest of the truth. Bringing back the ancient secrets of our youth. Free is home. They know what you did. The best to ever say it. No keeping it hid. American Indian history. You got away with the truth. An intelligent giant. Shining through. We hit New Orleans, dancing in the second line parade. Feeling the brass band, seeing the history we made. Then down to Houston for the battle of the bands. Watching the drum lines rock the whole stands. Yeah, priest, Harlem all. You walk with the kings, with a visionary mind. Who knows what the future brings? With a scholar's mind and a writer's soul. Taking back our stories and making them whole. It's Harlem all. They know what you did. The best to ever say it. No keeping it hid. American Indian history. You got away with the truth. An intelligent giant. them all believe in what you say. Wrote the books, mapped the mounds, held the line. The best to ever do it until the end of the time. You got away with it all because the truth is yours. Keep writing, keep shining. My own silent guy.